There are no arguments to be had that if you focus the majority of your training time to the key fundamentals of the sport of jiu-jitsu, you're going to get disproportionate results compared to everybody else who follows all of these meme and new trend and ridiculous moves that you see on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. But every now and again, there's some time in your training that you should be dedicating to learn how these things work to see if they can apply to your training. In this video today, we're going to go over one of the more exotic new moves that you may not have seen before to see just how it can fit within your foundational skills.
First of all, Kenta using this, and then I think a couple of the other B team guys that I saw using this, called higher ground, but we're going to get into a couple of ways that we can get into the position and then utilize it effectively. So typically, when we're defending our single legs, a lot of people think that just trying to take this leg away is a very useful endeavor. Yeah, some of the time that's achievable, but when he gets a good locked up grip, you're not just going to be able to sprawl your leg away. And so if you want to disconnect his ability to control your leg, you've got to get creative with a couple of different options. One thing I want you to do, even if you can't get your leg away, like if he's hit a proper single leg, he's not arching at his back, he's going to hit like a proper single, yeah, like this. When he goes to pick it up, let's say for whatever reason you're reaching for his upper body, he just level changes, yeah, exactly right. I don't want you to start to go and just hop here. I want you to drive your hip into him so you can elongate his grip as much as possible. Spew will tell you the difference between me standing here and hopping versus the difference between me getting in a short whizzer and turning my hip down towards the floor. It's much more difficult for him to hold on to this, and it's not a lot more difficult for me to stand here like this. I can still hop, I can still move, I'm still mobile, even if he wants to try and run the pipe or something like that or switch his head. My hip being connected to his shoulder is doing a really good job at keeping him in front of me, keeping him in place, and then we can start to go into our lift series. So from here, I want to come around the corner, stuff his head at the same time that I take a quarter step around the corner to face where his foot is currently, and then I want to link up a body lock at the same time that I do that. So all in one motion. This could happen off a single leg. I start to stuff his head, get my shoulder down and start to put my shoelaces on the mat. I start to stuff the head, come around the corner, sit with a chest lock like this, and then I'm going to try and crunch his chin towards his chest. Nice and simple. The big detail of this is at the very beginning. You don't just want to let them grab a single and then dominate all of this position where he can go head outside, he can go head inside. We really don't want him changing through all these different single leg mechanics. We want to stuff him into one position consistently. So when he hits a good shot, level changes, exactly. I want to immediately start to get my shoulder down towards the inside, and I want to beat him for this grip battle. I could theoretically just sprawl my leg out of this, but most of the time that's not just going to happen, especially when he starts to control the lower portion of your leg. He can start to elongate my leg, but he can't do anything to stop my hip turning. I can always turn my hip down. So I'm going to stuff the head, I'm going to step around the corner, I'm going to take him chin to chest, and then we're going to finish in this position for now. Let's give that a go. The second way that we're going to get into this off the single leg is when our initial defense is actually much more successful. Now, what do I mean by that? Most of the time, you should be able to hit a sprawl preemptively as they level change and reach down. So you're not going to let them get their hands connected behind your leg and then try and sprawl, because that's never going to work. I almost kicked you in the nut. Usually it's going to be something like this. We're down blocking our lead hand. He goes for the single and I start to sprawl my way all the way down here. You'll notice he did get his hands connected, but it was me throwing my hip down, and I'm doing that same shoulder motion of throwing my shoulder forwards and throwing my hip backwards. Whether or not I can get my knee to the floor is dependent on how his timing is on the shot. But regardless, we're going to end up in the same position no matter what. This time, I'm not going to be able to lift him from this position, or it would be unwise energetically to do so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around the corner, I'm going to block his tricep with my knee, reach down for his ankle and take a belly whizzer on the far side this way. And then when I go to roll over my shoulder, he doesn't have any post in this direction. So if he tries to stop me with his right elbow, he can't. So if we go again, come on. If I don't block the elbow and I just try and sit and sag here, he widens his elbow. Sometimes this can get a little bit messy. You end up in bottom position. So it's extremely important that when you sit around the corner, imagine this, right? It's the exact same stepping motion as I come around the corner to lift, except we're on the ground now. So all I do is block the elbow this time, and I'm not lifting. I'm taking the belly whizzer. I'm stopping his leg from posting. I tuck my own elbow outside his knee. And I just roll him through like you're fat. roll him through over to this position, and then we're in the same situation again. So this time I actually time my defense shot correctly, and I can get my knee all the way down to the mat. Notice how I don't put my toes in the mat. It's always shoelaces along the top of the mat. Reason being is I don't want to get my toe stuck in the mat and then him drive forwards and be able to lift my knee and advance this position. If he drives forwards with my shoelaces on the mat, I just slide along it and I elongate his grip, which is what I want. From here, I take my left knee on the outside of his elbow, I grab the tight waist, and I make sure he can't post with his foot. This is really important because I'm blocking his knee at the same time. If I don't block his knee, same thing happens except at the lower body. So he widens his knee, I try and take him over, it doesn't work. Block the knee, block the tricep, take him over, works every time. Let's give that a go. So now we have two methodologies of whether we can get a successful sprawl or an unsuccessful sprawl, and he does a really good job. Essentially, we get into this position, right? And I was talking to Brad just before. Be careful that you don't put your knee past the line of the elbow, because right now Spewy can still widen his elbow. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you'll fall off as a result of this. So be precise. Make sure that you're putting your knee directly on the outside of the elbow so that when he goes to widen it in any fashion here, it'll be unsuccessful. Same thing for my elbow to his knee. I want to put my elbow just outside the line of his knee and block it exactly like you would with your foot with a knee lever. You want it up here, you don't want it down here. Because if I block down here, he'll still be able to widen his knee exactly right. So then I just take this grip on the outside, I use my belly whizzer to roll him all the way through. Oh, you fat fuck. And then we get to this situation. Now, this is what I want to look at today. We've obviously gone through our two entries to get here. Now, this is called the higher ground position. It's kind of like this retarded north-south chest to back position. And what I'm really searching for here is trying to get my hands in between his biceps and his face here. So really what I'm looking for is to start to extend my leg away and then come into this situation. What I've been really enjoying from here is actually taking this arm on the top side a fair bit deeper and then coming towards the back of the head here. You'll notice now that if Spewy wants to turn away from me, I've sort of blocked him with this half Nelson sort of grip here. If he wants to turn in, it's a different story as well at the same time, as long as I can achieve this bottom side grip. I wouldn't necessarily rely on this position if he was to take his arm away and I can't reach this hand for whatever reason. Now he can pretty much freely turn into me as he likes. However, if that does happen, what we're going to start to do if he turns in, we're going to take our hand from behind the head and we're going to go with him spinning, go up to your knees, spinning around the corner and getting the back of my palm to the side of his head. And what you'll notice, this is a darce setup. I can easily start to claim my bicep over here, getting my head out of the way, and then putting my chin over my hand. Now, I have taught you guys that I don't necessarily like darces from turtle. I haven't set this up from turtle. Obviously, he's just gone to a turtle position. Reason being is he's got a pretty good ability to pull his elbow back towards his ribs in the turtle position. However, this would be a version of a caveat to that rule because you'll notice that his arm is completely elongated in front of my body at this moment, and I've got a really nice lock on the darce here. For whatever reason, if you feel like a good squeeze here, squeezing correctly, pushing this shoulder into the other side artery isn't working, and he starts to defend by laying his body all the way down to the floor, which is a common defense, don't just stay here and squeeze the life out of your arms. What I want you to think about is how you could come up to top position here or how you could still finish the darce. And one way I've been finishing the darce from here is actually by coming over, rotating up, turning him back over, and then coming into the mounted position. Now, what we know about darces and katagatamis, all that sort of stuff, if you can get your hips to their hips, you're in a very good spot to finish. So think about like closed guard arm-in guillotines, closed guard darces, mounted guillotines, mounted anacondas. These are all much better than the variation that you would be doing, say from here, maybe inside control, something of that variety. So if you can always make an effort when they're starting to defend as he goes to his belly, if they're starting to defend, rolling them through again, and then starting to come up into top position by getting your hips up and over, by looking your head in towards the mat, you're much more likely to get a finish. So we get to our higher ground position, we block both the outside, we roll him through, and I'm searching for behind the head to stop him from turning away, and I'm searching for this lower arm to stop him turning in. Sometimes I can't reach the lower arm and he fires up and starts to turn into me. I take my hand that's behind the head to the other side, and then I start to rotate underneath, getting towards my darce position. Now, if I can finish it from here, I will obviously do so. If you feel like you have to come up to your knees and then re-roll him through, by all means, do so. This should be pretty achievable when he's just laying out like this. He's gonna stay in the same position while we move around him. If you have to pendulum your legs, do so. Start to come up and around. Once you get to this position, look your forehead in the mat and then come up to your knees, bringing your knees up and over the top. And then the finish here is where my hips drive down into him as I pull my arms in together. Let's give that a go. So that was predicated on us not being able to gain access to both arms. So we come through, roll him all the way through. Yeah, ass to face. That's what I want on a Tuesday morning. Brilliant. Anyway, so that was predicated on the fact that we couldn't reach this arm for whatever reason. Maybe he's been here a couple of times, maybe he takes it away from us. This time we actually do gain access to this arm. Now, I've been playing with both the bicep and trying to reach for the wrist. Typically, the way that you'll get to the wrist is that if you start to come up and pull the bicep underneath behind them, kind of like this Dagestani handcuff thing, now he's completely fucked. If he wants to turn away from me, I've got him pinned on the bottom side. If he wants to turn into me, if he wants to turn away from me, I've got him pinned on the top side. If he wants to turn away from me, into me, I've got him pinned on the bottom side, so turn in. He can't turn in because of his left arm. He can't turn out because of his right arm. It's actually a really nice spot to be in. It's kind of shit. I don't really have a good answer for this at the moment, and that's why I'm doing it to everyone. But anyway, what I've been starting to do here is climb up the body, elongate the arm, and then you can sit into this, where you would normally have a figure 4 for your back taking, you can start to sit into this position. Again, I've got him pinned on both arms, so if he wants to turn away, he can't. If he wants to turn in, it's very difficult. And now I can start to climb my legs up and over the top of the body. Now, where I want to take him at the moment is over my right shoulder. I keep this arm pinned behind his back so that I can trap it along the way. So I'm going to take my right foot, trap it over my left foot. Now, this is predicated on your partner's shoulder dexterity, I will say, on your mobility. So just be a little bit careful when you're putting people in this position. Sometimes their pec can get a little bit loaded. Oh, are you ticklish? No. Are you? Why are you laughing then? I shouldn't know that information. Just be careful that you don't load their pec up too much by like sitting down the end of the corner and then throwing your leg violently over the top. Just lay yourself into this position. But what you'll recognize here is I got a shitload of options. I can go into armbar territory. I can start to feed into triangles of different varieties. If I wanted to take this arm out of the way, I've got all my armbar series. I can put myself in 3/4 juji. But ideally, just get comfortable getting into this position and then recognize all the options, all the good options you have from here. One of the big piece of shit options that I don't recommend you do to all your training partners, but stop him from breathing. And if he goes to defend, you can just put his arm behind his head. Probably don't do that one. But it is available. It's genuinely ready to go. So from here, you can sit back into arm lock territories. You can start to feed in to triangles, whether you go ankle triangle, whether you let him come all the way to his knees and you go to front triangles, then you can start to go into this. There's a whole bunch of different options. So I recommend getting good at this position, even though it's a little bit less known and probably not as top shelf at the moment, but it's definitely got some merit to it. So this time I go behind the back of the head and I start to reach down on the bottom side. I start to pull my hips out and away so I can build height, and then I tuck this elbow underneath him. If he goes to turn away, it's very difficult because of that top side. If he goes to turn into me, it's very difficult because of that bottom side. Now I take my elbow and my knee and I connect it over this far side, and then I sit into this chair sit back take position. The beauty of this is that if he fires into me, I can just throw my foot over the top and let him take me over the direction that I wanted to go anyway. And then he's kind of stuck with his arms behind his back, which is A, really embarrassing, and B, really good for me. What do you want to do from here? Kill myself. Can't say that on YouTube. But you'll notice that I've got his arm pinned in this situation. So even if he does make a lot of momentum towards his knees, it's pretty easy for me to gain access to triangles. It's pretty easy for me to come out towards arm bars. There's a lot of good things that come as a result of putting them there. And I think it's worth looking at. So have a play around with your partner. Just be careful when you are sitting over the top that you don't extend their palm too far away from their shoulder, like I can't get my arm behind my head like that. And then we'll move on from there. Okay, so we get to this initial position and we've got the arm trapped on the bottom side. Just pop up for a sec. Thank you. We can claim this and we start to pull his elbow up underneath the side. Now, when we start to travel up towards north-south here, it's likely that he takes it, yeah, exactly. It's likely that he takes his arm out and then he can free himself like from the top side. I still have the ability to wedge my elbow over the top and keep him pinned here if I like. So he can't really do a whole lot. I'm still pinning him on the bottom side. I'm still pinning him on the top side. Now, from here, you could go back into that chair sit that we looked at and start to throw over. And now he's in a lot of trouble. Or alternatively, which Jake kindly mentioned to us from Atomic Dojo with, was it from the Kenta video or Jeremy just showed you? Okay, it was from the Kenta video. So I've got this bottom side trapped. He frees his elbow, but this time we come up into this seated position where you typically find that you can go with back takes. Ordinarily, this would be from a head and arm position, but you can do it obviously with their arms behind their back. And then what we're gonna do is put his chin over his chest so we can compress him. It's gonna be extremely difficult for him to scoot away from this position. Yeah, if he tries to scoot himself along the mat, it's gonna be hard. Don't fall over your training partner and do this to them. That would just be a fucking disaster. But we'll step on the inside, throwing our body triangle leg all the way to the top side. And you'll notice that what ends up happening is he's got his arm trapped on the low side. We've obviously got wrist lock variations from here, but what you should be doing, do proper shit, don't do wrist locks. Start to come up into the body triangle. And now we're essentially fighting for this battle where we've got his bottom arm trapped already. It's behind his back. This is probably the worst position you can be in on the back. Maybe this would be the worst position you can be on the back, where you literally have no defensive hands. The likelihood that you get there is very little. But once we get to this position, we want to take knuckle line grips, not wrist grips. If I take the wrist grip, it's actually quite easy for him to strip. If I take the knuckle line grip and I turn this direction and then pin this towards his chest, this is almost physically impossible to get away. I think the reason is because of the angle of the arm here. You can't generate a lot of force when your arm's bent up like this in this position. If you go down the body, this can generate a fair bit of force with the tricep. So just extend your tricep. Yeah, exactly. But it's kind of a similar concept with the heel to butt idea. If we compress your heel towards your butt, then you try and extend your quad, it's extremely difficult from this disadvantageous position. So now I can just go through a game of punching that down, and then we've got our rear naked strangle finish. Let's give that a go.